I'm going to continue to tell you a story. It's going to involve some vanishing photos and the lengths the two women will go to solve a mystery. Oh, and maybe a hint of the dead taunting from the grave. Welcome to the Aurora Wasteland. Connections are a funny thing. You can start the day not knowing someone and be at their funeral later that week. With little in her pocket, Molly moved to Canada to escape the stupidity of the British Conservatives, as she put it. She couldn't believe how much they were able to fuck up a country so regularly. With little to her name, she took a job at an oil and gas company. Not her first choice, but the pay was adequate, and she got to watch X-Files while at work. She'd loved that show since she was little. It had got her through her parents' passing, and a marriage, and then a divorce. But once she'd run through the episodes a few dozen times, she needed something else to scratch the itch of the unknown. So she hit the internet hard and stumbled across a website called the Aurora Wasteland. She read all the posts and watched all the videos. The possibilities that any of this was real fascinated her. Actual paranormal, weird events right near her, where she lived. It was almost too much. She filled out an application to be an investigator and waited. And then she waited some more. Finally, after a few months, she received an email from an Aurora Wasteland admin. They had a likely fraudulent case to investigate, but all their active researchers in the area were busy. She happened to live nearby, so they asked if she could stop by and ask some questions. The next day, she was knocking on Dolores' door. With shaking nerves and a cup of tea, she asked Dolores to explain what had happened, which Dolores hesitantly did. They talked about Dolores' walk with her friends around the lake. Most importantly, they talked about the tower of bodies in the water. Dolores left out the dreams from the night before, not because she wanted to withhold any information. She just didn't think they were that important. Who wouldn't have nightmares after witnessing something like that? As the tea and story came to a close, Molly had a notebook full of information and even more questions, which she started asking Dolores, most of which were basic and likely unneeded. A seasoned Aurora Wasteland investigator would have known exactly what to ask. Molly was new and didn't know what was a waste of time and what wasn't. But the one question that stumped Dolores was when Molly asked if she recognized any of the faces. At the time she didn't, but in her dreams she did. Had her dreams informed her of what she had actually witnessed? Or was it her brain just messing with her? So she simply replied with, she didn't think so. But her own answer didn't sit well with her. In fact, it brewed inside her as Molly asked her the next question. What had she actually witnessed? Had her husband actually been there and her not noticed? What sort of wife didn't notice? Was she supposed to be doing something? Before Molly could finish her next question, Dolores blew up at her. She was mad that this Aurora Wasteland group could send someone so junior to help her. But in reality, she wasn't mad at Molly, and both of them could tell. In an effort to bridge and re-establish a working connection with Dolores, Molly brought up what the Aurora Wasteland admin had told her. It was common for people to submit missing individuals to the Aurora Wasteland website. It was even more common that those people weren't really missing. Some people just got lonely and will milk anything to get attention, just to have someone to talk to them. And while it's sad they have to resort to these lengths, it was important for Aurora Wasteland researchers to determine if claims were real or not. Dolores asked if Molly believed her, if she thought she was one of those lonely people. Molly shook her head and told her that she believed her, and that she wanted to help Dolores figure out what had happened. She wanted to take her back to the lake. After one more cup of tea, the two women prepared for their hike, but a phone call halted their journey. One of the women Dolores walked with every morning had died peacefully in her sleep the night before, the night after the walk. Shaken and unsure if the two events were linked, the two women set off for their walk and the lake. The car ride to the lake was filled with chatter about where both women were from and the hobbies they shared, the primary of which was gardening, though Dolores favored vegetables and Molly flowers. But once they got to the lake, their conversation faded and the walk turned to silence. Dolores was worried that what she'd witnessed previously wouldn't be there anymore, and what that might mean. Molly, on the other hand, was worried that what if Dolores had seen something that was real? What would that mean? And she was worried, what if she couldn't handle seeing it? A tower of bodies seemed like something you could handle until you actually have to handle it. Their walk took them in the opposite direction of Dolores' initial hike. Since what she witnessed was much closer to the end than the beginning, they didn't want to waste time. Minutes later, they reached the edge of the lake. To Dolores, the water looked dark red, just like it had before. To Molly, it was green. As they reached the same location where Dolores had witnessed the bodies before, her eyes whelmed up. It was still there. The tower of bodies, reaching for her. This time she was sure they were moving, wanting to reach for her. She covered her mouth. She wanted to scream. Molly said nothing. She took her phone out and snapped a few pictures in the direction Dolores was looking. She checked her phone. The pictures matched what she was seeing, which was green water and nothing else. Without saying a word, Dolores took a step out of the water. She had to get closer. She had to see if her husband was out there. But Molly stopped her before taking another step. Whether what she was seeing was real or not, she couldn't let this 90-year-old woman walk out into the lake. Upset at the situation and Molly's reluctance to let her go in the water, Dolores stormed off back to the car, abruptly ending their investigation. The ride back was done in silence. Dolores said nothing because she was angry. Molly said nothing because she was new and didn't know what to say. She questioned how she handled the situation back at the lake. Had she done something wrong? After dropping Dolores off at home, Molly stopped for a drink at a bar she frequented often. The bartender knew her by name, knew her drink, and knew her bedroom, which they visited after closing. Late that night, after the bartender had gone home, Molly checked her phone for messages from Dolores. There was none. She wasn't even sure if Dolores had the ability to text or message her. So she checked her email. There was nothing new. So she pulled up the original email request she'd received from the Aurora Wasteland to investigate Dolores' case. It had a phone number and email address given as contact information for Dolores. She stared at the email address, then opened a blank email and started typing. It was to Dolores. She apologized for earlier and attached a picture she'd taken at the lake. It was short, but to the point. Still unable to sleep, she posted an update on the Aurora Wasteland website. Her first. She posted the pictures and a brief update of what she'd learned from Dolores and their trip to the lake. She hit submit and went to bed. The next morning, she woke up to a dead cell phone. After a few minutes of searching for the charger in her work bag, she plugged it in and was greeted with a few hundred replies to her post. A large number of people had looked at the pictures and fieldwork she'd done, and they'd analyzed it. Firstly, they'd found information about the lake for her. As it turns out, an abnormally large number of dead bodies had turned up there over the years. Second, and more importantly, some people claimed to be seeing the tower of bodies Dolores was seeing. Excited with the information, Molly called Dolores, but only managed to reach her voicemail, so she left her a message. Several messages later, over the course of several hours, Molly was starting to worry. So she jumped in the car and raced to Dolores' house. Her brain couldn't stop worrying that maybe Dolores had died that night, like one of Dolores' walking companions the day before. She kicked herself for leaving Dolores alone. By the time she reached Dolores' house, Molly was a wreck of emotions. She burst through the front door, calling Dolores' name. There was no answer. Molly searched every inch of the house and found Dolores nowhere. At which point she started calling the list of contacts that Dolores had posted near her phone. None of them knew where Dolores was. She hadn't gone on her walk that morning with the other women. None of them knew where Dolores was. She was missing. And Molly didn't know what to do. Hey, my name is Vaughn Ashby, and I'm a horror author. Thanks for checking out my video, and if you liked it, why not pick up one of my free books? Head on over to vaughnashby.com/free and get a few of my novels. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at aurorawasteland.com, because it's real.